Hey guys, this is Sebastian. I'm currently working as a concept designer at Karakter Design Studio in Berlin, Germany. And since some members of the team did such an amazing job for doing concepts for the Game of Thrones show, I totally felt inspired to do something in this kind of vein for this tutorial. So what I'm going to cover is basically my general thought process when creating a mood concept like this, for instance. So I divided the whole process into different tasks, which will make it easy for you to follow, I hope. And yeah, basically, this is the image we are going to create. And I'm going to show you not that much of real-time painting, but rather the most important parts, or the parts which I feel are most important to create a somewhat successful image. So the task I'm trying to explain are mainly the briefing. So I'm going to make my goals somewhat clear, describe how I set up my reference sheets. Second, I'm doing a composition sketch like you've seen earlier. I'm going to show what I mean with idea pairing, how I work in masks to do them, and then some handy tools I like to use in this stage is the custom shape tool or different texture presets. So and then on the final three, I like to show you the PSD of the mood concepts and how I stack them, and how I explore different, in this case, ice formations to make it a moody and useful image. So since this should be in the kind of Song of Ice and Fire or Game of Thrones universe, I took myself a map and I chose my sketch to be on the land of Orus Winter, so which is basically the hometown or the base where these Ice Walkers came from, or the White Walkers. Yeah, I marked kind of the spot where I want my scene to be. So this is part of the briefing I like to give myself, or one gets from the client. Especially for personal work, I feel like it's pretty motivating or inspiring to set yourself kind of a story to dive yourself into and explore while painting. So one other thing I like to set up beforehand, which is kind of depends on your personal taste. So I like to take myself notes to make clear I focus on the right things I thought about earlier. So, and not to lose track. So I usually collect some light references, or references I like to nail the somewhat same mood. So, and these notes help me to keep track of them basically. So what you see is just some low-res crops of the show. And you kind of see in the background the ice formations and the area we are moving in this tutorial. So I kind of want to explore a different ice formation. So make it somewhat between realism and the fantasy kind of shape. So this is kind of the main goal here, to explore in this sketch how the ice formation would build up, or possible hopefully unique way to show how the ice kind of works and shapes in this area. So we're going to show a brave explorer, so I guess you need to be pretty brave to walk around in that area. So, and yeah, kind of for the light thing, I want to make it monochromatic and make it a lonely, cold and quiet place. So just indicate some snow haze, and indicate or what I would love to have as a result is to have the snow haze make some sound in your head. So that the snow haze or the blowing snow is somewhat the only sound our brave explorer would hear. while traveling around. Here you can see the 6 different composition sketches I did for the image. With these I try to nail down broad strokes and indicate the planes where light might hit. So I try to limit myself to just a few values, basically starting with just 2, so a dark and a light value. And yeah, that way I make it easy for myself to focus on the most important elements. So now I'm going to explain a little bit how I came up with these. What I like to do is I like to do something I call idea pairing. So which this basically means is I like to select 2 reference photos I like, or elements I would love to include in my scene. So in this example you can see 2 different photos, like some wooden hut and an ice cave, and yeah, the plus indicate the specific element I like in this photo. So this can be anything from color, from how the reflection works, or how the material of the wood is. And yeah, so in this case I collected the photos first, or selected the photos out of my collection first, and then came up with an idea that what if there would be an ice cave, and there would be some kind of old mounds or and railways like supporting the whole structure, and basically what if this might have been an old military base, or a base in this land of ice and winter, which was left like thousands of years ago, and our explorer dude is yeah, kind of discovering it right now. So yeah, this is pretty much the way I can come up with ideas for thumbnails. So why this is important for me, I think, is that way I can work pretty straightforward, and I can concentrate on the most important elements. So I kind of repeat myself with that, but that way I'm not yeah, drawing a thumbnail and then, oh, what if there would be a tree, because composition wise it might help, but this tree would distract from the overall scene, or the overall feeling of, or would drag away from the focus of the eyes in this example, for instance. And yeah, with just two pictures I get a pretty good sense. So yeah, and these photos don't limit me too much at all. So it could be anything, like when I mark these smoke areas right here, and the snow things, or the light spots on the snow. This doesn't mean that this always results in this image. So the smoke also could indicate that there's a little hut or bandits on a snowfield, or on mountains. So this doesn't mean it always needs to be on top, or needs to focus on this values, or this separation of values, if you know what I mean. So yeah, this is a pretty handy way I like to keep track of focusing on different explorations. So another way I like to focus on is like the basic rules, like the rule of thirds, or using mainly soft or round edges, like the shape language thing, soft and round edges to create a calm feeling, or a lot of diagonals like we got, for instance, here or here, to create more tension and more of a dangerous feeling, like here with all these spikes, and not just going straight up, or having round forms, but just, yeah, pretty aggressive forms. And the opposite, this is way more calm and grounded. Yeah, the last thing I like to make sure is that I like to divide my value range. So the basic rule just said that if you took 2/3 of light and 1/3 of dark values in this image, this would overall gain a happy feeling. On the opposite, this if you put 2/3 of dark values against 1/3 of light values, then the image would be much more mysterious and dark and heavy and easily claustrophobic and stuff. So this is what I also like to keep in mind. So what you probably have already guessed is how crucial I think the overall preparation phase is to create a somewhat successful image. You better take your time and start painting with a good foundation, including reference, research, and making maybe notes and stuff. So this is the sketch I used as a base for the mood concept. And one last thing I like to show you is so yeah, this is the PSD I created the thumbnails in. And one handy way I like to create these is I like to create a dark layer. So then I like to group it and create a mask. So you can go into the mask while holding Alt. But yeah, you just need to select a brush now. So yeah, let's for instance use this beautiful brush here. So now you just need to select fully black to paint in with white, or basically mask this black layer out, so you could just see the white of this background copy layer. So this makes it pretty easy to erase and paint stuff, because all you need to do is just press the X button, and the X button does switch between fore and background layer and switches these samples here, so fully white and fully black. And yeah, this is a pretty handy way because you just need to focus on one layer. So now you can go in here and, oh yeah, what if there would be some spikes, or oh no, not that big, and I'll make it sharper and stuff. So this is the way I like to do it. After finishing this sketch, I also like to place in some levels, just to divide the background a little bit more, maybe darken up the foreground a little bit, like I did here with some kind of fall off. Make sure that the most contrast is over at this dude here. So yeah, another quick thing I like to show you very quick is a handy tool named Custom Shape Tool, which is over here, and it makes it pretty easy to fake the detail and concentrate on the silhouettes for your thumbnails. So this is the way I created these trees, for instance. I'm gonna show you how to do this. You just need to select an element out of your preset list. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend doing them, or better collecting photo snippets you cut out within the process of doing concepts, and collecting them in preset lists like these. So if you already cut out these things, so why not store them and use them later on? So why make them, or why cut them out every time again and again? Yeah, for instance, now I'm selecting while holding Alt and the move tool here, and then clicking on it, it shows me where this element sits on which layer. So now I can just press Control and click on the layer. Now I made a selection. So now I can hover here over to the register path, make a create new path. So this makes a pretty solid, not perfect but solid path or selection of this image. And now I can go over to Edit, define custom shape, and here I got my new shape. It's pretty handy for complex stuff like this, or like these catapults or bridges or these tents over here. Yeah, so the way it works, or also for plants, and yeah, as I mentioned, trees, just to indicate quick and rather complex silhouettes for your sketch. So I'm going to show you how this works. Alright, now so you just need to select the custom shape again, go here over to shape and select your newly created shape. What you want to make sure is that it's set on pixels, not shape or path. Yeah, so here also on this wheel you can choose its formation. So if it's unconstrained or maybe it's a fixed size and stuff. Now I can, for instance, make a new layer. So and then just drag and drop my custom shape. So this is a simple version of how to use it. So yeah, no, let's make it more visible. So maybe I want to indicate or show the viewer that this cave we got here does include some man-made objects. So maybe they spikes into the ice to make it look dangerous and stuff. So this is a pretty handy way to create the same shape over the whole image very quickly. So this might also help feeling of distance and helps the overall composition because you get a repeating element from front to back. Awesome, we already reached part 3 of this tutorial, which is the final mood concept. So this is the final image. What I do after creating the basic composition sketch and start working on the concept or texture sketch, I like to select different areas of the image to divide it into different grounds. So the way I like to do it is I like to select the thing I like to cut out and then simply press Ctrl Shift J, which cuts the selected piece out of the layer you selected beforehand. Then I'm dragging them into different folders. So let me turn all the other stuff out for a second. I divide them into just a few different grounds. So like background and foreground, and the snow or haze, and our dude. And so this is a special case because we got nearly no overlapping forms in this image, which means that the midground contains nearly everything on one layer. So the ice formation is just one layer. So one of the first things I always do is that if I didn't have any 3D mockup or 3D screenshot beneath it, I like to include one perspective line to help me guide the vanishing point. And I also like to cut out different color thumbnails. The color thumbs help me to adjust the levels and colors of my imported photo textures very quickly. I'm going to show you how this works in a second. Another thing I like to do is I like to do a pretty quick arrow. It's pretty easy to lose track of the exact angle the light shines. So this is a pretty handy way for me to not or to have it in mind. So how does the color thumb thing works? So what I like to do is let's assume I'm going to pick some of the textures or some of the main textures I work with in the sketch, which I also like to store here in this texture backup thing. Let's assume I want to let's assume I want to like edit, I don't know, where should we edit? Like edit here. So the way I like to do it, I like to copy it. So just pressing Ctrl J, which will copy it. and then I like to make one light version and one dark version out of the same texture. I get here my light thumbnail, and let's make it even more visible here with dark one. And a shadow thumbnail. So I'm going to press. Okay, it's a shortcut in my case, but you go to image adjustments and then match color. So match color, you need to select the source, which is this PSD, and then select the color thumb. So let's start with the dark one. I guess this is the darker one. Yeah. So okay, let's assume this is the perfect shadow tone we want. So now we can play with the light and also fade it in and out. So now we're going to make a light version of it. So again, going to match color, selecting the same thing, but the light thumbnail. So you see the values are much lighter. We even increase this. Okay, and now what I like to do is I like to do a clipping mask and add a mask. So what this allows us to do is now we can let's select a decent brush. We can, again pressing X to control if it's dark or light, drawing inside the mask, and then we just paint out the light. Or you also can do it the other way around, doing a mask and then pressing Ctrl I, which will invert the color, and then we can draw in the light. So this way it is pretty easy to control the planes which get hit by light and the ones that are in the shadow. So now we can also do a mask on this source layer and then paint it out. So, and basically this is the way I like to approach my textures. I think you pretty much get the idea of how I do it. The good thing about this though is that you are able to keep the image as fully opaque. So you still got 100% opacity and not making colors dirty, because you play with different layer modes, or you play with the opacity to arrange or to shoot for the right values and color. So yeah, how do I keep working on this image? Let me show you another quick thing. So how do I come up with the ice formation? As mentioned earlier, this was one of my main goals here, to concentrate on the ice formation and make it look as interesting as I can. What I knew was that there was one texture I really loved, as also seen in the idea pairing thing while doing the composition sketch. So I kind of like how this ice formation does shape, and how you see all the dirt here, and which is kind of a symbol for the translation from going from the earth-like or mountain-like landscape to the fully ice impacted landscape, which is basically the brief we read early on. So what I like to play with in the beginnings, after indicating the main colors I want, so doing pretty large strokes, and then I like to play with different modes. Let me get this texture down here. So the modes I like to use the most when exploring. So this is what this concept is about: exploring a different or an interesting shape or an interesting ground material. So I like to play with two different modes the most, which are, besides normal mode, are darken. So what darken does, it, depending on the value beneath, which is this blue or this white here, it lets the even darker values on this texture shine through. So what it allows me to do is I can get pretty crisp veins, like like here, or like here for instance, or here. This is an alternative explorational thing you can do instead of playing with the blend if mode. So the blend if mode, there you can select what part of this image should remain. So if I'm dragging this here, or even making it softer by holding Alt and pressing one of these arrows and dragging it to the lighter values, this is going to disappear on this layer. Or the other way around is, as in the darken mode, I let the darker values beneath affect this layer. So I don't want to have it, let's say, on the lighter values I painted earlier. So now I can drag it softly and make it not show up on this right here. The other layer mode I like to use is kind of the opposite of the darken layer, which is the lighten layer. For instance, if I want to get this kind of glossiness or specularity here, or this is, I guess, also the way I got like these shiny blue tones to simulate the light hitting the ice and scattering through it, since it's a little bit transparent. So the lighten mode just shows the values which are lighter than the value beneath it. So now I can experiment with this shape. So this doesn't need to be fully perfect in every spot. So since it's an organic material, you can feel free to deform stuff, and just make sure that you get the scaling somewhat right. So it wouldn't make any sense if it would be this small here. This just would distract the viewer probably, since he sees the same kind of structure way bigger in other parts. These are the main layer modes I like to use. So further on, I felt like that them placing a foreground element would help, at least having some overlapping elements, and to help the read of the distance, and also adding a bit of mysterious elements. What I like to do is I like to just place enough elements in the scene for the viewer to make up his own story to one degree. What we know right now is that our dude is pretty brave. This is definitely one thing we know, and he doesn't care if the snow blows right into his face, because there's something in this cave, and he doesn't trust the darkness behind it. This is already enough as a story indicator. And the foreground helps me to show that there's another ice formations which are bigger than the ground level. So what I also like to make sure is checking back with my color thumbnail every now and then. So I did like the thumbnail on purpose. So there are certain things I like and to keep in the final sketch. So if you compare the final one with our sketch, you can see that I try to remain the basic little diagonal of this formation, and most important, the direction of every other stroke, which is basically following the haze of the snow, like right into the way of our protagonist. This should indicate that he's not having an easy time getting through stuff. So you see these pillars of this formation direct into his way. Here's one dark spot, for instance, so, and I like to keep it in the final image. So one thing you also might have already noticed, that I changed the silhouette of our guy in the right at the end. I felt like that he's much more of a leak. I thought at first that it might be cool to have him a weaker proportion, to make him even more attackable and to show that he's in a dangerous situation. But I felt like giving him more of this night watch coat thing, which will increase his shoulder silhouette, would make much more impact and support the fact that he's kind of ready, because you know his pose is not like he's handing his arm right against his face to protect it because of the snow. No, he's just standing right there with the sword and is ready to tackle whatever comes to him. Yeah, this is the main reason I changed him later on. Yeah, so the placement keeps the same as in the silhouette. With the haze, I took different textures and played with the blend if mode. So you can see right here, this is one I stored in the texture backup group, so I can repeat it over and over just by copying it, like here, and dragging it and trying to find good spots. Yeah, and the way I like to control them is to have different masks, so just painting out different spots which cover things I like. So and the final mask, of course, I felt like this is way too heavy over here, so I mask it out in the group. So yeah, after I feel like I like most of the spots. I like how this ice feels and how the overall formation feels, and that the viewer does know that this is part of a bigger scene. So in the background you can see even bigger ice formation, and that he's not going out of this kind of labyrinth of ice that soon. So after that I'm copying everything basically and merging it. This allows me to do some final changes. So I like to use the mixer brush, for instance, to delete some noise I find unnecessary, and also to adjust this noise here. Wouldn't probably be there if the sun hits it that hard. So yeah, these are some shapes I like to break up. Yeah, one last thing is the adjustments. Let me put them off for a second. So yeah, one of the first things I like to do is levels. Adjusting the levels is pretty powerful. It's no problem to save it for nearly the latest, because you always can change the color theme to some degree. I know what color theme I wanted to do from the earliest on. So I always like to put in some little gradients, so you notice the screen mode, and which is just some white gradient coming from the bottom, like where the sun comes from. And then I like to do a little more fall off, like from the ground, just pretty subtle. Then putting some more hues and levels layers to at least slightly give it a little bit more contrast over here, like color wise. And then do a little color dodge thing. So if you didn't know before, the color dodge is most powerful if you paint the color you want to use in this mode next to black, so it gets the most impact, illuminating one of these crystal ice formations over here. Like you can see them pretty subtle still, since I don't want to make it too saturated and keep it pointing on the parts I want the viewer to look at. some final noise, some final levels. Again, darkening it on the corners to make it the lightest point right to his helmet. The next layer is just playing again a very last final thing, putting in some more value destruction here because of the haze in the foreground, which should be lighter than what's right next to him. Doing some smudge tool action. So yeah, as being said, the dude changed his clothes, and yeah, that's basically it. Thanks so much for tuning in and staying with me through this tutorial. I hope you liked it, and I hope you learned maybe some new tricks. I would totally love to hear your feedback. So maybe you got some questions or got some critique. Totally mail this to gromansebastian@gmail.com. Again, thank you very much.